Welcome to the SupplyFrame B2B Marketing Video Library. Karen Breen-Vogel from ClearGauge has joined us once again to wrap up her presentation series on optimizing business results from your website. Karen is a frequent industry speaker and subject matter expert on online B2B marketing, and her company, ClearGauge, is a B2B online marketing services and consulting firm that helps customers create, measure, and refine their online marketing approaches. Great to have you back again, Karen.
Thank you, Sarah. And as Sarah mentioned, today I'm going to run through some slides that will really kind of wrap up everything that we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks and present a couple of new tips and best practices in one place so that as you look at all of this information and you go back to your company to try to drive your company towards more focused website that's going to drive better business results, that you really have some tips in a checklist in order to do that. So let's get started. As you may recall, we've talked about the fact that in business to business, the purpose and function of a website is to really get the right people, the right traffic, the right visitors, and engage them on their terms based upon what they need and what they want to do and who they are and where they fit in the buying cycle so that you achieve business value for yourself but also for them. And since they're driving this in the Internet environment, you really have to be conscious of what they need, and clearly if you satisfy that, you're going to be driving business value for yourself. It is really about relationships, and that's what makes the Internet, while new, certainly old, and that is it's always been about relationships. So this is just very much like a consultative sales call, although it's triggered and controlled by the buyer, the decision maker, or the influencer. They are in control, and they are trying to find the information they need to further their decision process. So if you understand that and you can help them with that, you're going to form a relationship with them. So kind of constantly thinking about what makes a good consultative sales call. Would you be saying to a person, oh, you're ready to buy a product. Okay, what are the specs of that product, or how are you using that product? Okay, let me help you think about what product I have to help you. Or if you were actually asking them, do you have a problem that needs to be solved? You don't know what product you need. You need to explore that a little bit with us. Let me help you explore that. So think of that kind of language as you go to build a website and as you go to create online programs. It needs to be formed around helping the buyer move through their process and getting them the information they need. So as we talked about in the previous sessions, we need to improve the sales call. If the website is in effect like a consultative sales call, you don't want to continue to make the same sales call over and over if it possibly can be improved, and if you can detect that the buyer is not responding to certain aspects of the sales call. So measuring the value of your website to your business really starts with measuring whether or not your visitors have been successful. Just like if you were in a sales call one-on-one with someone and consulting with them, you would be watching their body language, and you would be watching how they respond to you, and then what they would agree to do at the end of that sales call, whether they would be willing to take the relationship forward. So you have to think about setting up measurement on your website in tune with, have I given them things to do that they wanted to do? And if they do those things, would they consider themselves successful, and how would that translate into my business? One of the problems that we have, and I threw this in here because I always want people to realize kind of what's going on out there. So why isn't every company being really successful with measuring their website? And so there's a couple of bullets on kind of the current web analytics state of the state. I think many times marketers lack systems that support business level data. Their business may have a really great tool like a WebTrends or an Omniture or a Core Metrics or one of the well-known platforms, perhaps even Google Analytics that is still offered free from Google. But they're not getting any business view orientation of what the visitor's visit or path means to their actual business from a value perspective. There's also often ownership disconnects between IT folks who have been responsible for the implementation of the tool and marketing who needs to use it and apply the information to take action and to give ROI. Also, in general, I think it would be safe to say that this is all still relatively new, so we have limited skills within many companies to manage complex data and technical functionality around what these tools are able to do. These tools are actually quite robust these days, but the amount of that robustness and capability that's actually getting utilized is relatively low because the skill sets within many companies are just not at the level they need to be, and that will change over time. I think there's also, in general, a lot of common misconceptions about what data points mean. People tend to like to jump to conclusions about data instead of being detectives and understanding that they maybe should form a hypothesis about what a data point might mean and then realize that there may be other meanings that if they look at the bigger picture, they will understand that. So the other thing that I want to talk about before we wrap up with some best practices is that there's really two different kind of processes going on in most companies today relative to the website. The top process that I've put on this document is when people are making new websites or fixing websites. And they usually realize that they have a very product-centric site, that it's not a consultative sales call, it's a product sale. And they begin to try to really understand who their customers are, what their pain points are, and how do they create a website that's going to respond to that. Most times what happens is it bifurcates into product capability that may be supported through very good product information that can be found through a site search functionality, and really good content and navigation that can support someone who does not know specifically what product they're looking for, or they're not at that point in the buying cycle. Developing very relevant content, implementing site changes, and really ending up with a version 2 of that site. When you're in that phase, it's really important to do an implementation of web analytics, which is where you understand what the various milestones on the website, the content, the interactions, the tools, the downloads, you put them into the architecture as we discussed in a previous session. So you're really in architecting the way you're going to look at your data mode, and you're implementing it when you're in that process. As you actually then have a site that you feel pretty good about, or you at least think you're at first base with, you begin to collect data all the time. And this is where you move into phase 2 on this chart, or continuous site improvement. And you're constantly picking up the web analytics data, which is informing you whether or not the KPIs and the milestone events are occurring, and to what degree are they occurring, and where do you have problems. And then what you want to do, and you see I've listed a couple of other boxes here: usability, online surveys, online focus groups, and landing page optimization. These are really other forms of data gathering that you can use to be a detective, because your web analytics are telling you you're not getting to the performance that you were trying to get to.